Donald Trump is losing allies everywhere he turns, though, let's be honest, they probably were never true allies to begin with. A more accurate way to describe it is that Trump is losing his grip on the Republican Party, on Congress, on the MAGA base, and worst of all for him, on MAGA-aligned media. And why is that the most damaging loss? Because MAGA media feeds the base its propaganda and keeps Republican members of Congress in line. Without Fox acting as his messaging machine, Trump is struggling more than ever. Which is why newly leaked criticisms from Bret Baier are hitting him so hard at a time when the MAGA movement has never been more fractured. We're going to break down that Fox host's attacks on Donald Trump, but before we do, if you could quickly leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Baier said about Trump, and it definitely wasn't flattering, I want to start with the one genuinely reasonable Fox host, Jessica Tarloff, calling out Donald Trump's latest scandal.
There's nothing in the video that says, I want you to defy lawful orders. It's reminding people that in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you have a sworn duty to not comply with unlawful orders.
And what would those be?
Senator Slotkin gave an interview to TMZ where she did talk about what could potentially fall into those categories. As Kennedy said, bombing boats in the Caribbean when you don't know who's actually in those boats. And we don't know why General Halsey, who was the head of the Southern Command, actually resigned from that post. We'll eventually find out what that is. They go back to 2020 when Donald Trump said shoot protesters in the legs, and Mark Esper said we're absolutely not doing things like that. Concerned that people who are serving right now have come to tell these veteran representatives that they feel like sending troops into American cities and possibly being pitted against American citizens are things that could fall into these categories. And Jesse said, you know, they're doing this to sow discord and distrust amongst American citizens. Now, I think what's really sowing distrust and discord amongst American citizens is the fact that the America First movement online is a bunch of bot farms, and it's coming from Nigeria, and it's coming from Russia and Iran, but no one seems to really care about that. They want to talk about these veterans. And Pete Hegseth is proving...
What famous person on the right is from overseas?
I'm not sure. Not Benny Johnson, MAGA cult slayer.
Who?
Look at
MAGA cult slayer?
Wait, is he related to Todd Starnes?
Listen,
never even heard of him.
Pete Hegseth is proving these Democrats' point with this idea of bringing Mark Kelly in and then possibly leading to a court-martial. Because if that's what they're going to do to a sitting senator, then think about what a junior officer who's concerned about the orders that he's getting is going to face if he does go to his JAG officer. And these representatives have said that they are hearing from folks on the ground that they are concerned about the direction that we're going in.
And this is so wait a second.
The former CIA officer is telling you what she's hearing?
A psyop.
Too many ifs.
Remember when AOC was letting undocumented people know their rights? And she said, here's a list of things that you are entitled to by being here, even if you are in this country illegally. And they said that the AOC was committing a crime, that she was trying to tell people to do illegal things and evade ICE when she was just telling you what your rights are. And these Democrats are doing the same thing. They're saying this is what your constitutional oath means.
Greg,
it's especially ironic that in the same week, Donald Trump is witnessing the biggest collapse of his MAGA movement, Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning from Congress, Republicans turning on him, and more resignations reportedly coming. Another revelation drops. Many of his loudest online supporters aren't real people or even Americans. They're just a bot-run troll farm. And to Jessica Tarloff's point about rhetoric, it has been Donald Trump's language that has consistently divided this country. That's not even up for debate. This pressure to tiptoe around and act apologetic after Charlie Kirk was killed was always absurd to me. Continuously apologizing and condemning while MAGA refuses to take responsibility is actually harmful. It shifts blame onto us unfairly, and I'm simply not going to play along with that. What matters more than repeatedly condemning political violence is actively working to prevent it, something Democrats do every day. I'm not going to throw a parade for Charlie Kirk. That's not the issue here. The real point is that MAGA is falling apart. Before Bret Baier went after Trump, he actually hinted at the reason behind this breakdown while discussing new polling. And after that, we'll get into what he said and what it reveals about his true feelings toward Donald Trump.
But the issue of affordability, the issue of how people feel about the economy popping up in our latest polls, personal financial situation now, excellent, good, 40%, only fair or poor, 60%. You can see that changing from July. Condition of the U.S. economy, also a perception totally upside down, 76 to 25, and that changing a bit. And then economic conditions for the nation and you personally, again, 25% positive, 76 negative for the nation, and then 60-40 personally. So
that speech was heinous. Text reveal Fox News host enraged as Trump refused to concede. Bret Baier, a veteran primetime host on Fox, was apoplectic as Donald Trump refused to concede the 2020 election loss, according to recently released text messages. The Guardian's Jeremy Barr reported Monday on the text messages, which were released as part of voting machine company Smartmatic's lawsuit against the conservative news network. One exchange between Baier and an unnamed recipient was particularly noteworthy, and that the broadcaster used profanity to describe his feelings in the wake of then-President-elect Joe Biden's win over Trump. "I am tired and pissed and running out of suits in NYC, and there are no effing bars open or casinos." Baier wrote several days after the election, "I may just tear some Trump campaign spokesperson's head off tomorrow." That speech tonight was heinous. Totally heinous. The speech Baier referred to was likely the November 5th, 2020 speech Trump delivered at the White House, in which he repeated the debunked claim that millions of votes were cast illegally in an effort to steal the election. He repeatedly alleged election interference from powerful special interest and said phony polls were conducted in an effort to demoralize his base. A few things stand out to me, and honestly, none of them are surprising. First, Bret Baier, who Fox News likes to present as a hard news journalist, which is an oxymoron on its own, was visibly frustrated with Donald Trump's relentless lies about the 2020 election. But it was equally unsurprising that Baier snapped right back into line afterward, returned to the usual Fox routine, and kept pushing the same narratives. That's the part that always happens. A brief moment of honesty, followed immediately by compliance. That's also why this week, and really the last couple of weeks, have been so interesting. After the 2020 election, Republicans did a little hand-wringing, wondering how to move forward, but they never truly broke with Trump. There was no principled stand. Anyone who did speak out either faded quietly or was forced out. The Republicans who voted for Trump's impeachment didn't run again. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger kept speaking out, and the party pushed them out entirely. That's not what's happening now. Sure, Thomas Massie will likely face a primary challenge, though I actually think he might win it. And Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned. So you might say, how is this different? But it's very different. Marjorie Taylor Greene somehow has the third best odds, not polling, just betting odds, but still, to be the Republican nominee for president in 2028. That never happened for Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, or Adam Kinzinger. The people who spoke out against Trump after 2020 weren't doing it to be more MAGA. They were rejecting MAGA. Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the other hand, is claiming she's doing this because she is more America first, because she supposedly represents Trump's original mission better than he does. That is a totally different dynamic, and as MAGA media fractures, as influence spreads from Fox to scattered online factions and new right-wing content creators, Trump is in real trouble. He truly is. He no longer has Bret Baier, whose paycheck depends on Rupert Murdoch, or Maria Bartiromo feeding him softball questions. That era is fading. And That should scare Trump. I also think it's wild how little we discuss that Fox had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for knowingly lying, and people still treat them like a legitimate news outlet. I definitely don't. That's why I call them the Fox Propaganda Network. Shout out to Josiah at Pondering Politics. Whether he coined the term or not, that's where I first heard it. But that's exactly why independent media matters. It's our job to build the ecosystem that pushes back. We're doing that here on YouTube. And our friends on MSNBC play a role too. In fact, Ari Melber just broke down one of Donald Trump's latest legal defeats. Fitting, considering Fox's own courtroom losses, and you're going to want to see it.
We've had the Nixon era, we've had McCarthyism. There are historians who remind us that we have been through times where the federal government has been abused like this before, that has politicians trying to use the powers to investigate, to charge, to try to end free speech and free democracy. Certainly that's what McCarthyism was about. But historians remind us these things often run out of steam and run into the wall of the courts. And what the court found here was that Trump had tried, or his aides had brainstormed something that was so sort of mischievous, no one other president had tried it, where they ran out the clock on basically one temp prosecutor and tried to put in another temp prosecutor. And I'm going to explain this in plain English. The judges point out that, well, if that were allowed, then you'd never need to go to the Senate to confirm anyone. You could just stack temp prosecutors all the way down. So certainly that's not allowed. And this ruling goes into much greater depth, about 30 pages, of exactly why all of the law precedent and the Constitution itself is against that. So even if you say, okay, Ari, a lot of details here, you seem excited about the news, sure. The bottom line is, this was a test of whether a president willing to go farther than anyone in history could use a loophole to hijack more of the Justice Department, cutting out not only the Senate, but the rule of evidence to go after their opponents. And tonight the answer is, no, you don't get to do that. No, you lose the case on Comey. No, you lose the case on James. And no, while we're at it, your lawyer, pack up your bags, she doesn't work here anymore. That is as wide a rebuke as we've seen in a while on these issues. And the losses come amid the wider reckoning for Trump that we are all living through. You can't miss all of this, whether you open your phone or follow the news through television or newspapers. However you follow what's been going on in the last few weeks, let me remind you that in the last 3 weeks alone, Trump lost these two cases today.
Ah, how beautiful. The collapse of MAGA. It is so sweet, so satisfying, and I absolutely love talking about it. And we're going to keep doing that every single day on this show. If you want to support the work, you can hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. If you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.